Welcome. This video is going to walk step by step through how to set up a script set for PTB analyses. So I'm going to start with a blank workspace and I'm going to open up a terminal window. I prefer to have my terminal window dragged into the bottom right. I'm going to open up a Dolphin browser so I can file browse. I prefer my Dolphin browser in the upper right. And then I'm going to SSH my terminal window into Paco, which is where we prefer MATLAB jobs to be run. Okay, now I'm going to use my Dolphin browser to navigate to where I'm going to actually do my analyses. So I'm going to do it in my own data public folder. So I'm going to put the folder here. So I can take this location and put it right here. And then on our server, the templates are here in CCN Lab Data Public. This folder 1_templates. These are all folders with templates in them. And this is the folder I want. So I'm going to take this location. Okay, so this line of code here is a line of Linux code, which is going to copy this folder into this location, and I'm going to have it rename it rest. So if I copy this and paste it into a terminal window, it should create a new rest folder with everything that was in that PTB folder. And this is what a PTB folder should look like, a data analysis folder. And we'll go over each of these. All right, step 2 would be to assign this new folder and all of its contents to a particular project group. Now, this is an optional step. So right now, if I do an LL, I can see that this new folder is part of the group users. So I don't actually have, this is my dissertation data, I don't actually have a group assigned for any of these folders, so I'm not going to do this step. But if you're in a group, like for example one of our collaborators group, or in one of our lab groups for a particular project, you would want to assign the new folder to a project group so other people on that project group can access the folder. Similarly, for step 3, we'll want to assign liberal permissions to this new folder so that other people can view and modify the the files. So I'm going to go ahead and do that for this folder here. And as we can see, the permissions here have changed from what they were here. Okay, so step 4 is going to be modifying these 3 lines of code so that the new script set that is in the scripts folder is more appropriate for my task. Right now, this generic template script set is for a go-no-go task, that is event locked to the stimuli. But I'm going to be doing a rest task that is actually response locked. So I want to change all these file names and change text within each of these so that everything in all the scripts will no longer be called go-no-go stim. So this first one is just a change directory command to make sure that you're in your scripts folder, because you do not want to do these 2 lines of script lightly, because they will change every file within this folder. So this first line, the grep line, is going to search for gonogostim, and then it's going to replace it with whatever you have here. So I'm going to change all the gonogostims to rest response. And this next line, we'll rename all the files ending in .m in the current folder. So anything that has this in the name, it will be replaced with this. So if I copy these 2 lines of code, and again, make sure you're in the scripts folder, in this new folder you've created, I can now paste these 2 lines of code into a terminal window that's in this folder, and it's going to change all the file names. So now they don't say gonogostim, they say rest response. And if I go into each one, it's changed it in text as well. Pretty powerful little group of functions. Okay, so the next step is to open ISFA base load data script and modify it in these particular ways. So for this script set, there will be a set of 3 scripts which are labeled ISFA base, and these are the first scripts that need to be run when you run a PTB analysis. They set up several things that are necessary for all the other scripts, all the other analyses that you might want to do. In general, the base averages script itself, this is the script you will actually run in MATLAB. You really don't typically need to change any of this. This is all pretty much standard settings for our analysis pipeline. But in load data and load vars, you will need to change things. So for step 5, it says I should open up load data, and I need to change ERP in name beginning and ERP in name end. So that's these 2 variable specifications here. And so what I want this to be is a string that is the pathway to the folder containing the preprocessed data. So I'm going to go to my Dolphin browser, and I am going to go to where my preprocessed data is. Preprocessed data is typically in data main for your particular folder set. And for me, they'll be in the mat files typically. So I can just take this location, copy it, and paste it over this. So now when the PTB starts to load files, it will know where the files are. Now the second part, ERP in name end, goes along with this first part, in name beginning. So I need to modify this so that it will include everything in each individual file name that is not included in the subnames file. Excuse me. So I guess let's talk about the subnames file first before we go on. So if I go back to my scripts, there will be a load subnames script, and this is going to list all the unique parts of the file names for each individual file. Now this is not how my files are named. As you can see here, rest response, so it says P, the subject number, and then this other stuff after it. And that is similar for all the rest response files. There's a P before the number, and then there's this underscore rest response .mat. So in the subnames file, I need to put the unique part of that file name. And then all the shared parts of the name, I can put in this in name beginning and in name end. So as I said, each has a P before it, and then afterwards it says underscore rest underscore response. Underscore rest underscore response .mat. So now for the subnames, I just need P201, P202, P203, and so on. Now, fortunately, I've done some analyses before on some other tasks that have the same subject numbers. So I'm just going to go ahead and, oh, here I can. So this is what the subnames I actually need are. So I'm just going to go ahead and copy all this, paste it right over here. So now this script, load rest response EEG subnames, creates this variable subnames, which is just a cell array with each unique participant identifier. And so again, basically needs to be, as the instructions say here. Well, I guess that's loads. Step 6 is ensuring. We'll do that later. All right, so I think I got that. So I have changed ERP in name beginning so that it's a string to include the absolute path to my preprocessed data. ERP in name end, so the non-specific file parts at the end of the file names. And then I have the option to comment in or out the preproc stimulus run base. And this is just a generic name down here. If you want to include any kind of pre-processing steps that the PTB will perform. So for example, if you wanted to remove a particular electrode from every participant, or you wanted to baseline correct every participant's data, or whatever. So anything you put in this script, preproc stimulus run base, and this is a script in our new folder. So preproc stimulus run base. So this has a bunch of things that we used to do. This is artifact tagging, but I'm not doing anything. So I'm going to comment this out so that it does not actually run this. And then there's also the option to change any other settings that might be appropriate. So for example, changing the baseline from these values, but I'm going to keep those as is. All right, so this file, the load data is done, so the PTB should know how to load up data. So step 6 would be to modify the subnames. And I went a little bit out of order, and I already did that. So I've modified the subnames file so that it includes a cell array of all the unique identifiers for my participants. And here I sort of go over it one more time to ensure that in erp.inNameBeginning, then a subname, and then erp.inNameEnd is going to create a string that exactly specifies the absolute path and the complete file name to your preprocessed data. And this is the #1 error that people run into when running the PTB. I can almost guarantee you will run into this error. And so chances are it's that when these three are combined, they don't exactly specify out the path and the file name. Okay, on to step 7, which would be to open up the ISFA base load vars script. So that is the third base script. And here what I'm going to do is I'm going to change the cat codes to specify a non-overlapping list of trial types that I'm going to compare. This is step 1. So this section here is specifying different cat codes. And cat codes are just what I described. They're the conditions that we want to average all together. So in this example for a go-no-go, ERPT type, by the way, is PTB format for triggers, trigger types. So trigger type 1 is a go on the right side, trigger type 2 is a go on the left side, type 3 is no go, and blah, blah, blah. So you want these to definitely be non-overlapping. You can't have any trials represented twice, or there will be bias in your analysis. Now, I'm not doing a go-no-go, so I need to figure out what are the triggers for my task. Now, I've already done this before, so if you use my pre-processing pipeline, you can go into your data main folder and go into your scripts folder, and you can go to your pre-processing parameters file or your cat code count script. I didn't create one for this task for some reason. But here in the parameters file, parameters.triggers to epoch indicates which triggers I actually care about. So it's just a 1. There's only one type of trigger. So I am going to, don't need that anymore. So trigger type 1, that would be a response. But I'm also going to include another condition, which is erp.stim.group equals 1. Because I'm going to be doing some between groups comparisons. And then for go. So this is control group, and this is meditation group. Okay, so I have altered the two, so I only have 2 cat codes. And again, make sure that this number, and this number are all equivalent on a row. So if you wanted to add a bunch of, if you wanted to add a bunch of cat codes, you could, for example, copy this line, paste it a bunch of times, and then add new cat codes. But make sure that you change each one of these numbers. So it would be 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and then change all these and change all those. But again, I don't need to do that because I only have 2 cat codes. Okay, so that's changing cat codes. The next is to change this subsampling length, and that value is down here. And you want to change the subsampling length so that, as I say here, it's lower than the lowest trial count specified in the cat codes. In other words, one participant is going to have the lowest number of trials for each cat code. You know, whatever the lowest number is, you want a subsample length that is 1 less than that number. But you also don't want that number to be too low. If it's below, for example, 5, you might run into problems. We have published data down to a subsample length of 3, but generally I try to keep it above 5. So if you have a lot of participants, you might want to kick out a couple who have too few trials. It also should be noted that you don't need to put the subsample length super high. So if you have hundreds of trials for every cat code type, I wouldn't set it over 15. There's a pretty big level of diminishing returns after 15. You don't really get much more effects. Okay, so I'm going to, I don't actually know what value to set this at. Let's see, do I have, so I would check the report here, my pre-processing report, and just look for the lowest trial count. But I'm going to cheat and just see what I did for the other tasks. So I set it at 7. So I'm just going to do that. Okay, and again, picking the right subsampling length is a whole thing. All right, so I've saved that. So now I'm ready to start doing things. So I've SSH'd into Paco. Now I'm going to change directory to this overall PTB folder. Oops. So I'm going to change directory to this folder. And then I'm going to, oops, I'm going to open MATLAB. And again, I have that command here. And so then step 9 is to run the ISFA base averages script in MATLAB and hope for the best. All right, well, it appears to be, oh, I spoke too soon. Okay, so it looks like there's a problem with this, so I'll have to troubleshoot to figure out. Looks like this has no waveforms. So it tried to run participant 201, and the specified criteria yielded no records. So now I will have to troubleshoot why that's happening, and then start this script again.